Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Rana Muhammad Kashif and you are watching my YouTube channel Positive People Commission. Today is the episode number 7 of the introduction to our programming series. And just to recap the previous episode, you can also watch episode number 6 of the R series by clicking in the right top corner. Uh, what was episode number 6? Just to recap, subsetting vectors in R, we learned how to extract elements from a vector based on some conditions. And what is episode number 7 is about? Episode number 7, we will learn the two very most important data structure in R, which are matrices and data frames. Both represent rectangular data types, meaning that they are used to store both tabular data with rows and columns. Now let's move to our R Studio. Now let's get started by creating a vector containing numbers 1 to 20 using the colon operator, and let's create my underscore vector 1 colon 20, and the dimension function dim actually tells us the dimensions of an object. So let's use dim and my underscore vector, it gives null. Since my underscore vector is a vector, it doesn't have a dimension attribute, so it's just null. But we can find its length using the length function, length, length function of my underscore vector. It is 20. But what happens if we give dimension to a vector? For example, dimension of my underscore vector, let's do it, assign it C4 and 5. The dimension function allows you to get or set the dimension attribute for an R object. In this case, we assigned the value C45 to the dimension attribute of my underscore vector. Or you can also use attributes. If I call dimension my underscore vector, now it is 45. Earlier it was null. I can also use attributes as an alternative my underscore vector. It is also 45. So as we know, when assigning dimensions, the first number is read as number of rows, whereas the second number is read as number of columns. So it is R cross C. So in this case, my underscore vector, we have dimension as 4 rows and 5 columns. 4 rows and 5 columns, and it is no more a vector now. So what is it now? Any guesses? Yes, you are right. It's a matrix now. Let's check it. Class my underscore vector, it is a matrix array. Now let's store it as a matrix by my underscore matrix is my underscore vector. It is no more a vector now, it is a matrix. You can also just print it my underscore matrix, so it is in a shape of matrix where are 4 rows and 5 columns. So the example that we have used so far was meant to illustrate the point that a matrix is simply an atomic vector with a dimension attribute. A more direct method of creating the same matrix uses the matrix function. You can check more about matrix function by using the help function or the question mark symbol. If you want to check more about matrix function, just go to its help and you can read its documentation, and also there are some examples. Okay, and now let's create a matrix of the same numbers 1 to 20 with same dimension, 4 rows and 5 columns, but this time around we will be using matrix functions, and we would store our results in my underscore matrix 2. Now let's create a matrix of 1 colon 20, and you can see the second argument is the number of rows, and third column is about number of columns. By default it is 1 by 1, but if we specify, there will be 4 rows and 5 columns. So let's confirm that my underscore matrix and my underscore matrix 2 are actually identical, because we have converted my underscore vector to a matrix by assigning some dimension attribute to it, but Right now we have created a matrix by using a matrix function. So let's confirm it by using identical function, where I will use my underscore matrix and my underscore matrix 2. It's true. It means both produce the same results. Now moving on, imagine that the numbers in our table represent some measurements from a clinical experiment, where each row represents one patient and each column represents one variable for which measurements were taken. We may want to label the rows so that we know which numbers belong to each patient in the experiment. Okay, one way to do this is to add a column to the matrix which contains the name of all four patients. So how we can do it? Let's start by creating a character vector containing the names of our patients. Let's create a vector and assign names, four names. First patient's name is John, the second one is Anjum, the third one is Kane, and the last one is Barkat. So these are my four patients. And now what we will do, we will use cbind. It's a function to combine columns of two different matrices. We will use cbind function to combine columns. Just call cbind with two arguments, with the first one is patients and the second one is my underscore matrix. You have seen that something is fishy about our result. It appears that combining the character vector with our matrix of numbers caused everything to be enclosed in double quotes. So this means we are left with a matrix of character strings, which is no good. If you remember back to the beginning of this lesson, when I started, I told you that matrices can only contain one class of data. Therefore, we tried to combine a character vector with a numeric matrix. R was forced to coerce the number to characters, hence the double quotes. This is called implicit coercion because we didn't ask for it, it just happened. Uh, but why didn't R just convert the names of our patient to numbers? I will let you ponder that question on your own and do let me know in comments. So, moving on, we are still left with the question of how to include the names of our patients in the table without destroying the integrity of our numeric data. Let me just try. My underscore data is data dot frame and patients with my underscore matrix, and just print my underscore data. It looks like the data dot frame function allowed us to store our character vector of names right alongside our matrix of numbers. That's exactly what we were hoping for. Uh, Behind the scenes, data.frame function takes any number of arguments and returns a single object of class data.frame that is composed of the original objects. Let's confirm this by calling the class function on our newly created data frame. Class of my underscore data. There you have it. It is data.frame. It's also possible to assign names to the individual rows and columns of a data frame, which presents another possible way of determining which row of values in our table belongs to each patient. However, since we have already solved the problem, let's solve a different problem by assigning names to the columns of our data frame so that we know what type of measurement each column represents. So since we have six columns including patient names, we will first create a we will need to first create a vector containing one element for each column. Now let us create a character vector C names that contains the following values in order: C patient and their age, their weight, their BP, and their rating, and the final one is their test. Now use the call names function to set the column name attribute of our data frame. So call names of my underscore data assigned to C names, the character vector we just have created. And now to print my underscore data, there we have it. Now we have patients, x1 is now age, x2 is weight, x3 is BP, x4 is rating, and the final one x5 is test. So these were two the most important data structures which I have introduced in today's lesson. So just to conclude, in this lesson you learned the basics of working with two very important and common data structures, matrices and data frames. There's much more to learn, and we will be covering more advanced topics, particularly with respect to data frames in future lessons. And what's coming up for the episode number 8 of the introduction to R programming in the next week? In the next episode of the R programming series, we will be learning logical operations in R. Many of the questions in this lesson will involve evaluating logical expressions. Logical operators simulate element-wise decision operations based on some specified condition. So again, for this free course, I'm following a swirl package. You just have to install .packages swirl, and you can also learn R in R by yourself. So till the next week, it's goodbye from me, and thanks for watching.